I'm going to talk a little bit about the physical equipment inventory count sheet. I'm going to go ahead and get started. If anyone who's willing to join us afterwards can do so. And Lacey, yes, if you could record this, this would be great for anyone who isn't able to tune in. So the fiscal year 15 CYEP physical inventory and count sheet, which is now on your screen, was sent out kind of late in the game. And I apologize for not having this sent to you guys in the beginning of the program. But it's a part of the requirement in your grant agreement. Any equipment that has been approved for this project and has been paid for through this grant program is actually considered state property. In some instances, if there was some immediate need to use equipment in a similar area for another grant, if needed, we would be able to recollect that from your agencies and use it towards another program area. In a lot of instances, this never happens, but just to be in alignment with your grant contract agreement, I figured I would create a form that you guys could use to fill out all equipment purchases that or physical equipment purchases that were made under this grant agreement, so that when you guys are audited, you will have all of that information filled out. That is definitely a question that we often have, that our auditors or our that it comes up in our DHS administrative reviews. And so I definitely wanted to make sure that I'm providing you documents so that you can track that for your future use. I have a question here, is there a dollar value threshold? And typically any approved equipment purchases over $500 is what should be collected on the inventory. So yes, anything under $500, it probably isn't important for you to put on the inventory, but if it is $500 or above, I would write it on the spreadsheet. Again, it doesn't mean that we will come after it necessarily, but if it's definitely something that you should keep track of. The second document I am going to, and that document does, if you do complete that document because you have been, if you have made purchases that have been approved by our agencies, feel free to send that to me when you're finished so I can also keep that in our files. All right. The next document that I'm going to go over is a supportive services form, and I don't think I sent that to you, Lacey, but it was sent in the documents that I forwarded to all providers in the beginning of the program. The supportive services form is the document that you would have completed if any of your youth was given money to either purchase or even given supplies, whether it's clothes to wear to work, a backpack, transportation assistance, daycare assistance, etc. If any of your youth participants needed supplies in the form of supportive services, we ask that you fill out a supportive services form. I just wanted to put out that reminder for all of you. I've only received to date a few of them, and if it's something that you had collected throughout the program but you hadn't forwarded to me, go ahead and start forwarding those to me. I would like you to, whenever I say forward things to me, the best way to do that is to send it to the dhs.cyep@illinois.gov email address. That is where we try to maintain all of the emails for this program. If you send something to me, that's fine. Oftentimes what I try to do is forward it to that email address anyway, but I try to keep everything there just for good record keeping. Thank you, Lacey, for typing that in for me. So you can see in the chat box, dhs.cyep@illinois.gov. Feel free to send your physical equipment inventory sheets as well as your supportive services forms to that email. In the subject header, it's probably best for you to type in your organization's name, and then next to that, put the the actual document that you're attaching. So for example, if in one batch you want to send to me your supportive services forms, feel free to just put your organization. For example, I'll just use Love, Unity, and Values Institute, and so you'd write LUV or Love, Unity, Values Institute, supportive services. So I can then categorize it and file it as necessary. All right, I'm just waiting because I don't know if there's some questions that are going to pop up. All right, and then of course, if you have any specific questions about that, feel free to contact me directly. I also wanted to take this opportunity to just review expenditure documentation forms. I want to first again thank everyone for your timely submissions for the most part for these EDFs. I know that this year was a huge, let me stop. We have multiple supportive service forms for youth. Is there one general form for every youth we provided services, supportive services for? Erica, there was one supportive services form that was sent out in the first initial documents that you received, and that should be listed in the resource guide on this website. What I'll do is I'll send out a mass email to everyone, including that form again, and just for your reference. All supportive services would be applied to that one form. All right, so expenditure documentation forms. I know there was a learning curve on how to complete these because the forms were very different this year than they were last year. So I really appreciate everyone taking the time to get to know this system, as well as submitting the necessary revisions throughout the year. As you know, throughout the process, we had to manipulate it a little bit because we started accepting biweekly payrolls in addition to the monthly reports. And I wanted to put an emphasis on the in addition to monthly reports. By accepting the biweekly payrolls, we were not eliminating the need for each agency to still submit monthly EDFs. Monthly EDFs was the only requirement that our agency put into your community service agreement. The biweekly payroll that we started to accept was done for the convenience of the organization so that we were able to pay you in a more expediently. As a result, I've noticed that several providers have, instead of submitting monthly reports, have only submitted biweekly payroll. And so I will be having one of my assistants reach out to all the providers where we may be missing monthly expenditure documentation forms and ask you to do so at this time. If you're asking, oh no, well we have, what does that entail? It will be an easy, I think, thing for you to complete. Essentially, you'll just be taking the biweekly payrolls that you submitted, adding them up, and creating one report and signing off on it. So if you submitted a biweekly payroll from July 1st through the 15th, and then another one from the 16th through the 31st, and then again you didn't submit a report until August, for the first half of August, then all I will be asking you to do is submit one monthly report combining the two expenses for your biweekly payroll in July, and so it's just a cumulative report for the month. It should be very easy, but I'll have my assistants really walk you through the process if that does pertain to your agency. I just wanted to give you a heads up because from our department standpoint, we just want to make sure all of our files are in order and there's consistency across the board. Right now, we have some organizations with monthly EDFs and biweekly. We have some organizations that just completed monthly reports, and then those who've just submitted biweekly. So what I'd really like is for every organization to have monthly EDFs, regardless of the fact that they've submitted biweekly. How do we enter them if we are not doing it through payroll? Do we just send it? Yes. So please, you can complete your monthly EDFs and then again send them to the DHS.CYEP at illinois.gov email, and I'll just be checking to make sure that all your numbers add up correctly with the biweekly submissions that you submitted. So thank you for the question. So if you haven't fully grasped that concept, don't worry. I just wanted to introduce it because I'm going to have people following up. And again, just like any other topic, for the expenditure documentation forms, if you can clearly state in the subject header your organization name, and then expenditure documentation form, monthly expenditure documentation forms for whatever month. So again, I'm going to use the example for Love, Unity, and Values. If you want to put your organization name, LUV, and then put July final EDF, or August final EDF, that would be great, whichever month. And I'll just type in really quickly what that would look like. So you guys have an idea of what I'd be looking at in the subject headers. And I've mentioned this before, but it's really important that you guys try to put appropriate subject headers, and even some context sometimes in the email, because I'm receiving so many emails from folks, and I just want to make sure that they're being handled in a timely fashion, and and I completely understand what the email is pertaining to. Okay, so if I don't see any additional questions, I'm going to move on to the next subject. I see some people typing there. All right, so the next topic is the final, well, I'll kind of segue into extensions. So many of you have, oh, let me pause, sorry. Should we still upload the EDF? So, Julie, we do still want you to upload the EDFs for your payroll. However, if you're submitting a monthly expenditure documentation form that isn't directly related to the payroll upload that you are doing now, then you can just email those EDFs to me directly at dhs.cyep@illinois.gov. If you have received an extension to continue to use your funding throughout the next few months, then you will still be required to submit your payroll through the Illinois WorkNet. And at the same time that you upload your payroll, you will still be required to submit an expenditure documentation form. The clarification that I was just making was that for those organizations that have only been submitting biweekly payrolls, we are still requiring agencies to also submit a monthly expenditure documentation form that represents the cumulative expenses incurred throughout the month. And if, for example, you haven't uploaded that to the Illinois WorkNet already, then feel free to just email that directly to me at dhs.cyep@illinois.gov. I hope that answers your question, Julie. Do we have to submit a final EDF report if we receive the extension? Yes. So was that, if your question refers to monthly reports for July and August that have not been submitted, then the answer is yes. As part of the requirement for the entire grant program, I'm going to ask that everyone make sure that the records are consistent across the board. And if you haven't submitted your monthly expenditure documentation form for those months that have already passed, and you do not plan on extending your grant any further beyond September 30th, then I still am asking you to go back to your records and submit a monthly report for July and August. Very welcome. And going forward, just so you know, the payrolls, for those of you who have received extensions to continue to use your funds, we will still accept biweekly payroll For many of you, it probably doesn't matter as much in terms of receiving timely payments, because many of you have received the majority of your funds already, and now we're just working down what's left of your funds. So if you want to resume to just submitting your monthly payroll and expenditure documentation forms, then that's fine with me as well. Again, the reason for accepting biweekly payrolls was so that we had a report in hand that we could forward to our fiscal department to ensure that your cuts were getting, or your checks were getting cut in a timely fashion. With that not being an issue anymore, it doesn't become as necessary for those of you to submit biweekly payrolls. However, some of you may want to continue to do so just because it's easier to do in a short, to upload the timesheets for your youth on a biweekly basis rather than a monthly. That's completely up to you. We're not mandating it. The only mandate that we have and requirement is to submit your payroll to represent the month's expenditures by the 15th of the month following the month you're reporting. So all EDFs, your monthly EDF for July was due August 15th. Your August monthly EDF is going to be due, or was due September 15th. Your September monthly EDF and payroll is going to be due on October 15th, and so on and so on. So for those of you who have gotten extensions, the same timetable applies for any subsequent EDF. I also want to talk about, we have the final grantee report that is up right now. Those of you who have completed your program, I'm looking to see your final grantee report no later than 30 days after you completed your program. So all those who have finished their program on September 30th will have reports that are due on October 30th. So you have some time to do that, but please be sure to complete that as soon as possible. Submit them electronically to me at the dhs.cyepillinois.gov website. Please be sure, you can see on this screen, provider insert name is highlighted. That literally means each of the providers needs to submit their name there. So the cover page needs to include your organization. So please fill that out. Take the time to explain all of the great work that you did this summer, the accomplishments, any program changes that may have occurred throughout the summer, capacity building. I did receive a question about what capacity building means, and so I will take the opportunity to explain that to you. And because I think I did a decent job at maybe trying to explain it in my previous email, I will just explain that in a second. All right, so in terms of capacity building, we typically are referring to any activities that improve or enhance your organization's ability to achieve your mission or even sustain yourself over time. What the Illinois WorkNet has done and what we've attempted to do here at CHS is to provide technical assistance that won't just help you for this summer's program, but potentially could help you in the future with grants with DHS or any other administering agency. So some of the work and the training that you put in that staff time that you put in to understanding this grant would be considered capacity building for your organization. So please include any type of activities like that we provided or that you even received outside of this grant during this grant period, so that we know what you've been up to. And just to explain a little bit further, capacity building may include staff training to improve skills or evaluate gaps in needed policies and procedures, or it may include planning for the future, improving collaborative practices, and or utilizing new technologies. So that's a basic definition that that kind of describes what capacity building is. And then also feel free to share any other information that you'd like us to know about your program. I've received a report already, and they included some photos of their program in that little box, which I thought was really nice. So whatever information that you think is helpful to the department to know about the program this year, please, please include it in this final grantee report. It's not limited so that we want you to just include information that we put on this page. If there's something that we've left out that you want to tell us, let us know. We want to know about the great things. We also want to know about the things that may have, that you believe have room for improvement. So if we didn't do something well, you know, we want to give you the opportunity for you to express that as well. And some of that can be done in the program survey that the Illinois WorkNet has provided for you as well. This final grantee report, I want to be clear, is a requirement of the grant. So it's not an optional thing. If you don't want, to do it, that's not really an option. I'll be kind of tracking you down for it until I get it. As well as the monthly EDFs, I want to be clear about that as well. Even if you've submitted biweekly payrolls, it's not an option for you to opt into submitting the monthly EDF. It is a requirement written into your grant that I receive those, even if you've submitted biweekly payroll. So if you don't do it now, I will be tracking you down and make sure that those things get done, before the year is up for sure. But definitely, it does say in your grant agreement that these things should be submitted 30 days. Within 30 days of the completion of your program. So do keep that in mind. So that pretty much wraps up the final grantee report. If you have any questions about that, feel free to reach out. I think that this is a good complement to the success stories that we'll receive from your youth, as well as the employers, and the program survey. So all three of those documents that I think would be really important. I've received a question from Brian. Will that be 30 days after an extension? Yes, so thank you for that clarification. So for all of those who have received extensions, the end of your program final grantee report will be due 30 days after your approved extension end date. So for all of you who have been approved, you should have received an email from me stating that essentially your request has been approved and your new end date is X, Y, and Z. And there was an attached spreadsheet to that email that included your new and approved end date. If you haven't already opened that document up, I encourage you to do so. If I have for some reason gotten that end date correct, please let me know, point that out to me, and we will address that. Therefore, 30 days after that date, I will be expecting all documentation related to the final grantee report, as well as the EDFs and any other outstanding documents for the program. We like to try to wrap things up, within those 30 days as best as possible. So you don't have to worry about it, and we don't have to worry about it either. So thanks, Lacey. If we have an extension and need to bring on new youth, will we be able to enroll them on Illinois WorkNet? So Donna, thanks for that question. I have submitted and Lacey may want to chime in, but I have submitted the spreadsheet of the list of organizations who have received extensions, and I believe that the WorkNet will open up the applications for your organizations to be able to enroll new youth and to fill out the application until the end of your program. Lacey, can you confirm that?
Yeah, by the end of today, we will have everyone who has an extension who has been removed from the application added back on. So if you have additional youth that need to apply, they will be able to select your organization when applying. And at that point, then they'll appear on your dashboard and you can enroll them and place them just like the youth that you've done previously. But if you have questions on that, please feel free to email us and we can get you taken care of if you have any questions.
Thank you, Lacey. And I also want to take the opportunity to explain to you guys that we are excited about the opportunity to enroll new youth. We're excited to allow you the opportunity to continue providing services. That being said, all requirements and eligibility requirements, all just grant requirements in general, still apply during this extension time. So the eligible youth still have to go through the same process that the youth did throughout the summer in order to be a part of this program. I have received some questions from organizations who are interested in hiring youth who may have been involved in with other providers previously during the summer. And we do allow that. However, they are required to complete a new application and be assigned under their new provider's website on the Illinois WorkNet. So you still have to collect the same documentation. They'll still have to provide the same documentation for them to prove their eligibility for your program and go through that same necessary process. Just because they were part of the program under another provider throughout the summer isn't documentation enough. You still have to kind of do the same enrollment process that you did in the beginning of the summer. But I'm assuming it would be a little bit easier because the youth will be used to the process. Is there a new EDF for extension contracts for October, November, and December? No, there is not a new EDF, but we can take a look at, Lacey, do you mind bringing the EDF up again and actually pulling up the second spreadsheet on the expenditure documentation form? There's two. Oops, did I send you the wrong one? I think that's the PDF. So on the Excel version, the second sheet is the document that most organizations complete when they're submitting their EDF. I want you to pay, we're not going to be sending out new EDFs for the extension, but what I do, because essentially it's the same document, the only thing that you have to pay special attention to is the reporting period. And all of you should be paying attention to that part of your document, in addition to obviously the numbers that go into your current period expense. But that's going to be really important. I've already preset the Excel documents to represent July, August, and September. However, if you go beyond September, you will be responsible for putting in the new reporting periods to represent the months from here on out. Yep, thank you for pulling that up. So as you can see here on the example, you're required to put in the grantee name, your grant agreement number, which is the number that can be found on your contract. As you can see, the reporting periods were just submitted or just typed in this Excel document, I believe, or is this a PDF? Oh no, I'm sorry, I'm just scrolling over it. I apologize. So your grant agreement, your grant agreement number, which is found on your community service agreement that you signed, your FEIN number, the date for which you're filling out the document, who it's prepared by, their telephone number, as well as their email address. Then the next very important step is filling out the reporting period. Those dates, from and to, should be representative to the youth payroll upload. So Many of you who have been submitting biweekly payrolls, you may have heard from me where I've said your reporting period for your EDF needs to closely represent, it should be exactly the same as your youth payroll upload. So that still remains true for October, November, and December. But I will not be sending out new ones. That's something that you guys can manipulate yourself. All right, so, and just to be clear, October reports are due November 15th. November EDFs are due December 15th, and your December EDFs are due January 15th. You may very well add a tab for October, November, and December. Do you think would it be easier for me to do that and send it back out? I was just assuming that it probably wouldn't be, just because if you've already been manipulating one Excel document, then you may not want a second one. Okay, all right, good. Sandra? No, so for those of you who I haven't received extension request forms from, or formal requests for extensions, I'm sorry, I sent out an email about 2 days ago just stating, just thanking you for your participation in this year's program, and in the event that you should need an extension still, that I've extended that deadline until next Tuesday, I believe. And so you check your emails for that. I'll be clear. Let me go back and see what the deadline is. The reason why we were able to easily extend many of the programs is because your grant agreement really and truly is until the end of June 2015. The intent of the program, of course, was for this summer only, as well as the that we gave to most of you could only stretch until the end of September. However, there are some programs for a myriad of reasons that couldn't continue to use all of their funds within the 3 months, and so that's why we're allowing you to continue to use the funds. And we have the mechanism to do so. Of course, all the grant requirements are still the same, and so we look to you to be doing the exact same thing unless you tell us otherwise. And the extension that I have given for all of those who are interested in still submitting an extension is Tuesday, October 7th. If you can get those formal extension requests into me by 3 p.m. on Tuesday, October 7th, then I will acknowledge those. And what I'm looking for is just ensuring that you've done your due diligence and submitted all required reports to date, and things of that nature before I formally approve those extensions. If there's some outstanding documents, then we may think twice about that. But so far, we haven't had any issues with our providers. Everyone has been submitting documents in a good, timely fashion. So I'm very proud about that. Does that answer your question, Sandra? Okay, so I will try to go down my list of things I wanted to share with all of you. Okay, good. I'm glad that answers your question. So I guess the last but not least, Lacey had the success stories and program survey website up earlier, and we want to make sure that you're directing your youth participants to that site so that we can collect all of the amazing success stories from your youth for this summer. The reason why this is so critical is that oftentimes our organization is asked to speak on behalf of all of your programs. And of course, we want to continue to provide these opportunities for you and for the youth within your community. And so we turn to these success stories to advocate for programming in the future. So if you could submit those, the website has been posted in your chat box. And please encourage youth participants, as well as the employers who have been involved in this program and any other partners, to go on the website and fill out that page. That would be really, really helpful. And I believe there's also a program survey that is also posted to the website that will give us some feedback about how the program was run this year. And if you have any comments or feedback that you'd like to give to us, we want to hear it so we could constantly improve the program.
Ashley, if I could
another
chime in.
question from Julie. When should we expect formal extension approvals from DHS? So for those of you who submitted your extension request in a timely fashion before the due date, we submitted extension requests, or should have submitted your acceptance letters 10 business days after they were submitted. 10 business days after the due date. If, for example, you submitted an extension request and we haven't gotten a response to you yet, please reach out to me and let me know. Send me an email or give me a call, because that means that you were mistakenly overlooked. But that's typically how we handle it. Once we receive the extension request based on the due date, we will reply to you within 10 business days, because we're really evaluating everything to make sure that we have all documentation from you and that we're making an advised decision.
Ashley, if I could chime in for just a second and jump back to the success stories and the survey. On the page, you can see that there's the audiences, there's your youth participants, your employers, and then, of course, you, the partners. So under each, there's a link to the survey and a link to where they can submit their success stories. So it's all in one place. So if you send them here, they can complete the survey and they can submit success stories all at the same time, so that they don't have to go navigating around trying to find different things. So it's all right here on this page, so you can access both.
Awesome. Thanks, Lacey. I'm having trouble seeing clearly. I even have my glasses on, but thank you so much for that clarification. That's perfect. All right, so I am going to open it up for questions. I've pretty much gone through my checklist of issues I wanted to cover. Just to recap, we talked a little bit about physical equipment inventory. I'd like to get those from everyone, as well as your supportive service documentation that you've collected over this period. Up until this point, if you want to send me that information, and of course, for those of you who have received extensions and continue to provide supportive services to the youth participants involved in the Community Youth Employment Program, then you can send those to me in the future. But if you could send me everything to this point, then I will keep that in your files. When you send those emails to me, please be sure to put in your subject header the name of your organization and the information that you're attaching, whether it is the inventory count sheet or the supportive services, and then email that to the dhs.cyep@illinois.gov website. Your expenditure documentation forms we also covered. We'll be reaching out to those organizations who have not submitted monthly EDFs but have only submitted biweekly payrolls. If there is a monthly expenditure documentation form that is missing, we'll be asking you to complete one and send those also to dhs.cyep@illinois.gov. Again, it's not a requirement for you to submit biweekly time EDFs from this point forward. If you'd like to continue doing so, that is fine. It is very much a requirement for you to continue to submit your payroll with a monthly expenditure documentation form. So if you want to wait until the end of the month to upload your youth payroll with a monthly EDF, then you may do so, but you are still required to submit payroll and EDFs on a monthly basis. We are also still accepting extension requests. Extensions will need to be sent in a formal letter format to me at the dhs.cyep email address, and I'll be accepting those extensions until the 7th. I'm saying that right? 3 o'clock. And the final grantee report is due 30 days after the end of the program. For those of you who completed your program in September, it's due October 30th. If you are not completing your program until November, then it's due December. No, well, if you're finished October 30th, then it's due November 30th, and so on and so forth. So, okay, there are a couple more questions. Donna, yes, if you already anticipate that you submitted an extension and it's not going to be appropriate, then please reach out to me, and I will need something in writing to explain your need, and you can do that in a formal letter. Revise your previous submission and submit it to me in a formal letter. Yes, I did answer the question about the equipment maximum. So the threshold is anything $500 or more is definitely needs to be logged on that threshold. If it's $50, I mean, you don't have to put it. To be on the safe side, if I would do anything from $100 and up, but the requirement is $500 or more needs to be logged on the inventory list, and it can only be equipment that was approved through your budget. So if we did not approve your your equipment purchases in your budget, then you should not write that on your inventory. You actually shouldn't have purchased it with your Community Youth Employment Grant, but it's only for approved purchases for this grant. Okay, and so that was just a recap, and so I'll take any questions that people have now. Inevitably, I see your question, Ed. There will be youth who don't pick up checks, don't cash checks, etc. After we balance our account at the end of the month, what should we do with the excess funds? Ed, that's a great question. Thank you. What you will have to do is you will be repaying that back to the state. So if you do want to continue to open up your program, which may be hard to do based on the fact that youth aren't cashing their checks, then that's something, if you know for sure they're not going to do that, then you could possibly continue your program. But most likely, you will just have to apply that back to unearned funds, and that is the amount that would be due back to the state. Okay, $1,000, right. So in the case that funds are not expended for the grant, are not cashed out before the end of the year, then those funds will be due back to the agency. So Ed, to summarize, the grant period, at least your contract for this grant, is from July 1st through June 30th, 2015. If by the end of the fiscal year there are funds, you still have a balance in your account due to this program for the reasons that you've mentioned here, which may be youth who haven't picked up their checks or who have not cashed checks, etc., then that balance needs to be repaid to the state. It's also the same in the case if you have purchased anything for the youth for this program, for if you've purchased bus passes, or if you've purchased supplies that have not been used for this program, you can return them for monetary value, then we encourage you to do so, and you are required to pay that money back to the state. the money that was paid for this program, if it is not spent for the things that you intended to spend it on for this program, then that would work towards your unearned balance, and that's all money that needs to be repaid. You're welcome. Any other questions? Wow, okay. Well, I'm sure that you may have questions that come up in the future. Again, I'm going to give it a couple more minutes, but I just want to thank everyone again for your cooperation this summer. You guys really met the mark and stepped up to the plate to understand the new process for completing this year's program. And I really appreciate it. It's been a pleasure working with you, and I look forward to continue to work with you for those of you who have received extensions, and hopefully with those of you who continue doing business with the state.